This is Stand Up for the Truth, addressing important issues and topics affecting Christians across the nation.
Hey there, it's Crash Connell. It is a fresh new month, fresh new week. Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024. Fresh new podcast today with Mary Danielsen.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Hope you had a good weekend. We're going to talk about technology today and some background information on how we got here. Some of it you'll know, some of it you may not know. It'll be a good refresher. And because of the holiday weekend, we didn't want you to overlook the awesome message from Jan Markell on Understanding the Times. So tomorrow, in lieu of a podcast, there will be an encore broadcast of this weekend's Understanding the Times at 9 o'clock Central. So no Stand Up for the Truth, but listen at 9 a.m. for this special presentation here on Q90 FM. Also want to mention the Prophecy Conference is kicking off this weekend at Calvary Chapel of Appleton. Friday at 1 o'clock is the first session. You can register at the door in the morning. Registration opens at 10:30. You can go to ccappleton.org for all the information on who is speaking and just get their bios, find out who everyone is. Also Bruce Carroll with special music and the cost. All of that is at ccappleton.org. Hope to see you this weekend. The scripture today is Isaiah 66, 1-2. Thus says the Lord, Heaven is my throne, and the earth is my footstool. Where is the house that you will build me? And where is the place of my rest? For all those things my hand has made, and all those things exist, says the Lord. But on this one I will look, on him who is poor and of a contrite spirit, and who trembles at my word. Let's pray. O Lord, you are the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, the first and the last. You are the bright and morning star. We rejoice that our names are written in your book and look forward to eternity with you. Give us tender hearts for the lost all around us, and be ever mindful of what we have been forgiven us, of what we have been forgiven. And so extend your grace to everyone that we encounter. We ask for boldness as well, Lord, that people would see Jesus in us and be thirsty for that living water. Guard our minds and our hearts today, Lord. Fill us with your Spirit. In Jesus' name, amen. This is the 246th day of 2024. In 1783 on this date, the Treaty of Paris was signed, ending the Revolutionary War. In 1894 on this day, Labor Day was celebrated for the first time as a legal holiday. In 1929, the Dow Jones reached an all-time high till the day the stock market crashed. And in 1995, internet giant eBay was founded on this date, certainly a building block of internet commerce and part of the retail revolution that continues on today. What a different world it is. So let's look at that revolution that is less and less brick and mortar and more zeros and ones. Do you know what Bitcoin is? What blockchain is? If not, we're going to define a few things, and then we're going to track some crazy technology, very Orwellian stuff. And as I indicated, this is a review for some of you, and this is going to be new for others. And I think it's really good to know what this stuff is, how it originated, and by whom, so that we can keep up with it. Sometimes we hear certain words and phrases and we zone out because we don't really understand what it is, but we're going to do our best here to clear some of that up. I started using the World Wide Web back in 1993, such as it was, and one of the characteristics of it was that users were anonymous and little, if any, information was exchanged. Email addresses and internet IDs were always a random nickname. Now, some of you older computer geeks might remember CompuServe, where you were just a number. Whatever those early internet platforms were, I probably had all of them coming into my house: AOL, Delphi, CompuServe, because they'd give you 30 days free before they'd charge you by the hour, which got absolutely insane. But the first time I saw an email address with a full name, I was surprised because I realized that people suddenly seemed willing to identify themselves in this new medium. Now, I was raised not to talk to strangers, but what is the internet today except a complete contradiction to that very good advice? Now we're not only talking to strangers, we are handing over our location, our calendar, our photos, our financial and health info, and even our biometrics to entire corporations and governments, and they're turning around and selling your data to other corporations and governments. Now, data collection, and I'm sure we all know this by now, is the top industry of Google and Facebook and all phone apps today and other social media, of course. Not only are you paying for certain services, you are the product, and you leave a digital shadow wherever you go. You're categorized and randomized, and in some cases, marginalized by very powerful people. They have an agenda, of course. Not only are you being tracked, but also, and this is really important, you are being ranked by a set of social and political standards. An early version of financial tracking and ranking began in 1989 with the credit score. We have now come to accept that this is how we navigate mortgages and other loan opportunities to increase our financial viability. But imagine taking what we know about the credit score template and turning it against you as a tool of control, taking every aspect of your life, reducing it to a mathematical algorithm, and then producing an inclusive life score that would reflect your worthiness to both your country and your fellow man. Well, what is an algorithm? You've probably heard this term all the time, but it constitutes the very nature of this surveillance society in determining who can be a part of the global community here in the 21st century. Mathematical algorithms can be very simple, and they can be very complex. Think of it as a sequence of steps that transforms input into output. It's a little bit like a recipe. You don't take a box of cake mix and throw it in a hot oven and expect a cake. You have to input ingredients together correctly, and only then will you get the desired output. Now, beside the simple algorithms that are behind every computer function, they are also what power all social media platforms. And these are designed to show you stories based on your previous posts and preferences and send you ads based on your likes and dislikes. And we shouldn't be surprised when an ad shows up on our internet page based on things that we have purchased or even mentioned or talked about in our own homes. Some pretty weird stories out there. Social media and YouTube algorithms evaluate the language in every post and upload and determine not only the ranking of it, but whether or not you will be censored. Even though there seems to be an effort to expose the censoring of conservative and Christian opinion, that doesn't mean that anything will change on social media. Just because Zuckerberg says, I'm sorry, I should probably not have done that. That's to distract you, because behind the scenes what's going on is more and more of the same. Nothing is going to change. It's all for show. That's my take, because things will continue on in a certain trajectory. Now, because of the digitization of everything, this is a very significant development in how our world operates. We're just frogs in a pot. It doesn't, mean anything to us at this point, really. We all know all that. But our parents' world was transformed by the industrial age, but our world was transformed by the information age, and yet our kids and grandkids, they have inherited the age of the algorithm, which carries the potential for global tyranny that the other two analog worlds could not. So we have input, we have output, we have tracking and ranking, and that's the order of things. Let's look just for a minute at the Digital Republic of China, because they are really the template upon which global movements are built today. It's a communist nation, but they have an open market economy that's a unique combination of communism and capitalism that, as far as I know, has never been seen in the world before. And they have something previous 20th century dictators did not have, and that's technology. And the mischief they're making in their own digital dynasty is just incredible. They began gradually implementing a national program for human control back in 2018. I remember when this just began, and I was a little shocked by it. And it is now fully in place for every citizen. They have managed to cause 1 billion people to be financially and behaviorally controlled around the clock. I'm sure you've heard of this social credit system that assigns each person a score, and it structures their every waking moment. Now, it's facilitated by an infrastructure of cameras, of course. 600 million plus high-tech surveillance cameras set up to monitor them day and night using facial recognition and their activities and behaviors are cross-checked with all manner of accounts that are already on file. Already on file. So thanks to algorithms, each person gets a score that tops out at 800 if you are a model citizen. When I first heard about this and this phenomenal amount of control they have over their people, the U.S. was nowhere near implementing a similar system. I remember thinking to myself, gee, how close are we to something like that? Because it is fairly terrifying. It was still in the unthinkable stage, is what I'm saying here. I remember thinking how life would be in the U.S. if we had this. I got on my own train of thought, and I thought, well, this is far down the road. But I wasn't really thinking back in 2018 the exponential characteristic of a lot of how this economic, how all these things that come together much more quickly than we think. So the gap has been closed. We have a far different everything than we did in 2018 when life was fairly routine, even though the culture was circling the drain, of course. But from a freedom perspective, we could move around the planet unimpeded. We could speak our minds. At least we weren't completely aware that we were being watched, even though we probably were. So 2020, life comes to a full stop to bring us the biggest hoax ever perpetrated on the world, and it becomes more obvious all the time that free thinkers and critical thinkers went on the endangered species list because we were all of a sudden, only 2 years later, being carried along in a tide of control and deception, and the underlying, it was based on fear. That was the underlying method of control, to make everyone very, very scared. So when the engines were restarted, the world looks nothing like it did. And now, it's hard to believe it's 4 years since the beginning of COVID here. And the globalists have commandeered the ship. And we can see and hear their priorities and everything that they do and say. The agenda is hidden in plain sight. You know, when you hear things like Build Back Better, it carries with it the idea that something was completely torn down. So then what is being fast-tracked as a result? Well, of course, the complete digitization of our lives. We've been following the development of a central bank digital currency, or CBDC, in the U.S. since around 2022. This type of currency being the precursor to a cashless society, which we've been expecting a long time. I remember back in the 80s when all of a sudden barcodes appeared on everything. That was pretty interesting, but that's pretty low-tech. And today, many, many nations are working on their own digital money to revolutionize global finance, and it is going to happen. What started out as something called Bitcoin back in 2009 as a decentralized currency was really backlash to the big banking meltdown of 2008. And it is transforming wallets, and it will. Now, so far, as of today, the U.S. has not pulled the trigger on a CBDC. The central bank in the good old U.S. of A. has not made a decision about whether we're going to do that. To me, it's just a matter of when. But I want to take a look at the beginnings of cryptocurrency, such as Bitcoin, and a glance under the hood, because it really is revolutionary technology, and I really don't quite get it, but I'm going to tell you how it comes about. It's absolutely fascinating. So let's say that it's 30 years ago. And I'm telling you that someday in the near future, www.blablabla.net or com or org is something that will be a daily part of your life. Even though I really can't tell you what the internet is, but what if I told you that someday you won't really want to be without it, and you won't be able to be without it to some degree, even though few know or care what www or HTTP really means. And what is a blog anyway? The early days of, like I mentioned, Delphi and CompuServe, they were called bulletin boards, and sometimes there was a chat feature, and that was the internet. You could go on these bulletin boards and post messages, and it was DOS based. There was no Windows, and I'm still trying to figure out fax machines, and I don't even use one anymore. So, but likewise, cryptocurrencies are considered as revolutionary today as the internet was back in the 90s. And they're here, whether we grasp the concept or not. So if we can demystify it a little bit, the best we can, this new frontier that would not exist without the internet. I first started to follow these cryptos back in 2012. The complexity of them alongside the simplicity of my childhood, which involved taking my allowance down to the corner store and buying some penny candy and taking it with me to go see a 50-cent movie at the local theater, is how I thought the world would go around forever. But of course, the rules have changed. Cryptocurrency is a digital or virtual currency that uses cryptography or encryption for security. Encryption is nothing more than a way of locking down information so that only certain people can access it. For an example, an email or internet password is a simple form of encryption that lets you in and hopefully keeps other people out, unless you get hacked, of course. But some important features of these digital currencies is they were designed to be independent of a central bank or governmental authority. No bank fee or interest is collected on any transactions with these digital currencies. They cannot be counterfeited. The exchange rate cannot be manipulated. They were initially called a peer-to-peer platform. In other words, can be used for buying and selling between two people with no financial intermediary. And finally, its value is regulated by supply and demand. Now, the first crypto to capture public imagination and take off was Bitcoin. It was the only crypto. I remember that. I remember also when there were maybe 3 or 4 or 5 or 6. I couldn't tell you how many there are now. Thousands and thousands. But when it first came along, there were some interesting quotes from well-known names in the tech and financial fields about the dawn of this new world. The first one is, Bitcoin is poised to launch a revolution. That's from the book, The Age of Cryptocurrency, How Bitcoin and Blockchain Are Challenging the Global Economic Order. Quote, Bitcoin is at the early stage of fundamentally altering the global payment system, if not the nature of money itself. This is from Niall Ferguson. He's the author of The Ascent of Money. He wrote a brilliant book and an incredible documentary on the history of money. Another quote, you can't stop things like Bitcoin. It'll be everywhere, and the world will have to readjust. World governments will have to readjust. This is John McAfee, founder of McAfee Antivirus, Encryption, Firewall, etc. It's Money 2.0, a huge, huge, huge deal. AOL executive who invented the instant messaging service. Here's another one. This is Peter Thiel, co-founder of PayPal. I do think Bitcoin is the first encrypted money that has the potential to do something like, change the world. And Netscape, remember Netscape? Mark Andreessen, he was the co-founder. He said one of the most fundamental inventions in the history of computer science. Steve Wozniak of Apple, we're at one of those times in technological, economic, and social history where the sky is the limit. And Klaus Schwab, this technology is at the heart of the fourth industrial revolution. So, of course, he's on board with that. Let's camp out briefly in the land of modems, desktops, and flip phones and pretend it's 2008. You're listening to Stand Up for the Truth. My name is Mary Danielsen, and we're talking technology today. In 2008, you will recall that the mortgage credit crash of that year produced economic ripples that are still being felt by all of us every time we go shopping. So let's do some dot connecting, or maybe better said, debt connecting. 2008 was the year that Western leaders had to bail out the global money system to the tune of trillions of dollars. The debt load of the multinational banking and mortgage system hit critical mass. And you may or may not be aware of how close the world came to total bank and financial collapse that fall. So we came to the edge of the abyss. But close enough to change the world with Bitcoin. So while we endured sound bites for weeks after that about bailouts and subprime mortgages and TARP and printing funny money and cash for your clunker car, what was really going on behind the scenes was world-changing because mega banks considered too big to fail were actually not only being bailed out, but were consolidating. They were putting smaller banks out of business, which is still going on. And today, a handful of banking giants are bigger and more powerful than ever. Nothing about '08's events made a dent in how the banksters do business, of course. But the global economy has never been the same. So after the flames were put out, it was out of those smoldering embers of the great meltdown of '08 that these digital currencies arose. And it appears now that the biggest casualty of 2008 was trust in the banking system the way we have known it. And this is a really important point. Today, when you pay for your latte with a credit card, it takes 7 different financial entities to handle your transaction. Now, each handler gets part of the fee. And the banks, which make obscene profits from credit card transactions, get the biggest share of the pie. If you wonder why that latte costs over $5 and climbing, this is a big reason why. In 2013 alone, Visa and MasterCard realized $11 billion in profits, and it rises about 10% each year. In 2023, they made $20 billion, the credit card companies, in profits. That's a lot. That's double. So the days of the 50-cent cup of joe, where you put your coins on the counter to pay for it, are long, long gone in the rearview mirror. But if you were to buy that coffee with a crypto like Bitcoin, the banks are cut out. The money is delivered instantly, not 3 days later, with no middleman, no fees. Sounds a little, subversive and maybe a little anarchist, doesn't it? And it's so revolutionary that the financial systems of the world want in, and I knew that was going to happen, that this wasn't going to be a movement of the people and by the people for very long. Now comes a moment of unavoidable technobabble, and let me warn you, this might be one of the weirdest things you've ever tried to wrap your head around. You have to abandon your thinking that paper bills and coins stuffing your pockets are a true medium of exchange, and everything else is either sorcery or a complete illusion. But yes, of course, our paper money is also a complete illusion, but that's for another time. Remember, mediums of exchange are only as solid as society says that they are, whether it's rocks or flocks or stocks or bacon or rubles. So here is what it looks like under the hood. Now, Bitcoin, and I always refer to Bitcoin because that was the first one, and that's the one that people seem to hear about. Or any crypto really, is created by software, invented by an anonymous man with the pseudonym of Satoshi Nakamoto, performing highly complex mathematical computations. I know for years and years no one knew who that was. I don't even know if they still do. I haven't caught up on that. But around the world, people were and are using high-powered computers to create crypto from arithmetic and record every Bitcoin transaction that has ever taken place. This is called mining of Bitcoin. Each transaction is highly encrypted and cannot be hacked or double spent. I looked into these computers, what it takes to actually mine for Bitcoin. They're very specialized high-power computers. You need a lot of them, and your electrical bill will be in the stratosphere by the time that you are done. But these miners create a blockchain record of transactions every 10 minutes. Each miner must agree collectively with every blockchain that is created, confirm every transaction to make it valid, and become part of a great global transaction ledger of buying and selling. Wow. The blockchain ledger is available for anyone in the world to view on the internet, and you can watch transactions flying by in real time. And I warned you that this is one of the weirdest things that you'll ever try to wrap your head around. Let's connect one more dot before we go ahead a decade or so and see where we are at. Back in 2009, I began to study something called the RFID, or radio frequency ID chip, and how it was set to transform tracking in the realm of manufactured goods. It was set to become so pervasive that it would play a major role in moving us toward a cashless society. So we have a couple of things, a couple of plates that were spinning in the air. We have cryptocurrencies, digital, CBDCs, that sort of thing. And then we have RFID chips. These chips and tiny smart dust, RFID, yes, dust, a chip. These particles are remarkable technology. They can be as small as the period at the end of a sentence. They can be incorporated into every item and part manufactured on Earth in order to bring about a complete record of all goods. So we have blockchain as a record of transactions. We have the RFID, complete record of all manufactured goods. And it exists. It's called the Internet of Things. I wasn't sure when I first started to read about this if this was going to be a thing, if it was going to be real. It very much is a real thing. And the definition of the IoT, as they call it, is a network of physical devices, machines, and other objects that use sensors and software to collect data and exchange it over the internet, enabling remote monitoring and control. These chips make it possible to keep information on and track every single item and part and its owner for its entire lifetime. This is the date that this was created. This is the date that it will be destroyed. This is its shelf life. Now imagine what this means for your vehicle and every part on it, for instance, or the food that you buy, or your clothing, for the things that we have to be communicating with computers on this hidden internet. It's been building for a long time, but here's where it really comes to life. Because I remember reading about it and thinking, okay, I'm going to look for these chips or tags. So I go over to Sam's Club and I see these hot ticket TVs, and there is the RFID chip on the box, which I never would have noticed before if I hadn't read about it. According to an article in Forbes magazine, an ever-growing number of them will not be computers or smartphones, as everything from toothbrushes to heavy industrial machinery is brought online. Increasingly, they will be smart devices augmented with artificial intelligence and capable of making autonomous decisions. Now, that's not a little creepy. According to Forbes, by the end of 2024, there are projected to be more than 207 billion devices connected to the worldwide network of tools, toys, devices, and appliances that make up the Internet of Things. Businesses around the world have unlocked the benefit of IoT in recent years, and as individuals, we're getting used to a greater variety of wearables and everyday connected products in our lives, smart devices in our house, smart watch that we're wearing, the phones we have. This is not going to slow down during 2024, as the distinction between the physical and the digital continues to be broken down all around us. Now, the next thing in this digital dance could very well go like this. The Internet of Things gets combined with blockchain technology used to track, crypto transactions. Internet of Everything meet Ledger of Everything, and together they can form a seamless global network in which every person, transaction, event, item, crop, animal, interaction, and change on Earth is registered and accounted for in real time, all the time. Everything going on the planet can be potentially known and recorded with this technology, and no, you couldn't get off this grid. People have said for many years, I want to get off the grid. It's almost impossible. And if someone wants to cut off your buying and selling, of course they can cut it off, and your internet if you don't go along with the everything of everything. This record of transactions, it's not hackable or alterable. It cannot be shut down. It kind of reminds me of a sci-fi movie in which all the humans are gone and the camera pans to the one thing still going at the end of the movie, the computer with beeping and blipping and blinking lights. It really is beyond creepy. This combination provides an unfathomable amount of monetary and tracking power for a global authority to preside over infinite data from infinite devices programmed to monitor and control every single aspect of life. This is Stand Up for the Truth for the first Tuesday in September. Can't believe it's September. We're talking about technology, and we're going to talk about trying to lay some groundwork with digital currency, what it is, what the blockchain is, because it is hard to keep up with a lot of this. But we're going to move ahead a little bit and talk about Earth ID and WorldCoin and things like that. So stay with me as we have a lot more today coming up on Stand Up for the Truth.
Q90 FM presents the Police Lights of Christmas, helping over 70 police departments across Wisconsin.
Each department is going to leave this night with a box full of thousands of dollars worth of gift cards.
Visit lightsofchristmas.us. Police Lights of Christmas, a ministry of Q90 FM.
Feedback, questions, and topic suggestions are always appreciated. Email us at comments@standupforthetruth.com.
Welcome back to Stand Up for the Truth for September the 3rd. It's Tuesday. And I'm talking about technology today, and just giving a history on cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, because it's one thing to be keeping up with it as it's being developed, as it's hitting the marketplace, and as people are explaining what it is and how it works. But if you jump in later and you're trying to understand digital currency and what blockchain is and how important they are to the economy of 2024 and beyond, it's good sometimes to get a refresher on what that all means so that you can move forward. And when you hear this blockchain or whatever we're hearing on the news, something will trigger, and we can go from there to begin to understand, because change happens so rapidly these days. It's incredible. Cryptocurrencies, they provide a glimpse into a possible future where the global citizen is duped into thinking that this new digital money system that supposedly is decentralized and for real people who want to transact with one another, that it's going to set them free somehow. And that really, really is an illusion as well. When in reality, people will become utterly enslaved to a system that owns them, body and soul, and controls their life. It is just technology, but it does bring the potential for tyranny, and the unimaginable really is becoming imaginable in our lifetimes. So let's look at a couple of companies that are making their case for identifying and tracking every human on Earth. Deep down, I think we all still resist this. Of course, we don't want that. But that's not just their MO. There is an even stranger application that they're touting. Proving that one is an actual human. Let me develop this a little bit, because that's a bit of a new spin on this, and we're going to see what that means as well. This month, the UN is going to hold their Summit of the Future, and I've mentioned this in passing on Stand Up. We're going to get more into it as 2024 winds down. But part of this agenda is a global digital compact. And that is expected to, quote, outline principles, objectives, and actions for advancing an open, free, secure, and human-centered digital future for all. Human-centered digital future. Why do we have to even state that? That should strike you as odd. And the reason they want to outline this global digital compact is not everyone in the world has access to the bandwidth and devices that we in the West have enjoyed for a very long time. And side B of that record is you can't mark and track everyone in the world without some sort of standardized and monetized tap that can be turned on. But they make it sound so good. This is a human-centered digital future for all. So with all the haves and the have-nots in the world, how do the small and great, there's your social status, rich and poor, there's your economic status, free and slave, there's your political status, how do they all get on the same Revelation 13 page? Back in 1938, futurist H.G. Wells wrote a book called World Brain. The goal, he states, was to build a world organism with the help of technology, of which he knew absolutely nothing, all right? Creating some sort of crystal ball to predict and manage future world events. You know, to master and own the world. So let's talk about the push to ID and track every human on Earth. Now, two companies are really going for it, Earth ID and WorldCoin. Earth ID, and you can find that at myearth.id. You can look that up yourself. That's the website, myearth.id. Pay them a visit. They describe themselves as a global, award-winning, decentralized identity platform. They use, quote, next-gen biometric technology to offer its users the most versatile human verification process and something called liveness detection. And that means just what you think it does. Proof of life. Proof of being human. It's I am not a robot on steroids. That drill. You know the drill. We've been answering that question for years and years. Prove you're not a robot. Here are quotes from them. We are championing a secure and seamless universal ID solution. And our vision is an inclusive Earth powered by a self-sovereign digital identity. We are working towards providing a secure, self-sovereign digital identity to all human beings, irrespective of their social, economic, and political status. Well, that sounds remarkably like Revelation 13:16, when it tells us who must receive the mark. Everybody. Now, they have an app in your app store, this Earth ID, telling us it is ledger-based. Now, when you see that, that means blockchain. That's just another word for blockchain. So your ID goes on the global blockchain. It's also a digital wallet, they say. Now, that means that there is a cryptocurrency to go along with it. It will provide you with a social score, and you generate your own Earth ID, of course, self-sovereign, to make it seem like it was all your idea to do and to have. Well, none of this was ever our idea. So there's a big old hint to the people who think that we're going to buy into the self-sovereign ID thing. The digital currency that is associated with Earth ID is called Hedera. Hedera.com/users/Earth ID, or you can just type in Hedera, HEDERA.com. And they are a state-of-the-art blockchain that will be the ledger that keeps track of every Earth ID transaction in real time. And that is how a universal ID and buying and selling will become one. Also on their page, it says this: Hedera is governed by a council. A council of world leaders? No. Multinational banks, IT companies, and the likes of Google. And every corner of commerce around the world is represented by this council that is governing Hedera. This somehow allows them to claim that it's a decentralized operation, which, again, is nonsensical. But you can go on their site. They tell you what type each company is. And, of course, Hedera is a major sponsor of the World Economic Forum's annual conference. And I looked it up, and indeed, they are listed as a sponsor. Also, this council of governing body of Hedera is not just Google, but IBM, Boeing, Dell, LG, WorldPay, Deutsche Telekom, and many other companies that I don't recognize because they are from the other side of the economic world. Now, I've been documenting technology for a very long time now. Tech startups and experiments have come and gone. But when you take note of who has the deep pockets behind Earth ID, it gets even more interesting, because then I would venture to say, as late as it is, these corporations are investing unholy sums of money into something that they intend to see through successfully. Yes, they're rich, but I don't think they're going to throw hundreds of millions of dollars at these things if they don't intend to see it through. But as they say on TV, but wait, there's more. Let's talk about WorldCoin. WorldCoin is brought to you by a company called Tools for Humanity. The CEO is Alex Blania. He's come up with a project that he says is aimed at verifying humanness in a world that is increasingly digital. Why do these eggheads worry so much about what a human is and what it is not? Well, they know that the lines of reality are so far blurred by AI that this actually has to be a thing. In August of this podcast, I chatted with both Alex Newman and Patrick Wood about this very thing. Now, if you missed those programs, you might want to listen to them. You can get some background from those two guests who really are up on all of it. So, WorldCoin, Earth ID, what makes WorldCoin different? WorldCoin is a crypto that pays humans for a scan of their iris to get a digital passport. Talk about your trading in men's souls and psyches. Anyway, the company was founded by ChatGPT, OpenAI chief, and gazillionaire Sam Altman. And he believes that they are setting up a digital utopia for all, including the digitally underserved in the world's poorest countries. Some say they're taking advantage of the poor and handing over personal biometric data for a price. And they are not wrong, of course. Buying a person's biometrics should be considered highly unethical, and yet they are doing just that. Supposedly, it is to solve the problem of digital identity in a world of AI-fueled programs and bots. Okay, we don't even know what's real anymore. And this is true on social media. There's some very deceptive AI things out there. Now, here's the problem. This was created by these people, the Sam Altman types. They created this problem in the first place. And the spread of AI is a problem, one that no one wanted or needed, but the gazillionaire globalists created. So the delusional aspect of AI is coming home to roost, and it's not going the other direction ever again. The internet is changing forever, and they are not wrong about that either. Some people say that certain generations are more easily duped by AI. If you're from a certain baby boomer generation or whatever, if you're younger, you understand it better. I don't know if any of us were ever born to have to look on so much artificiality and so many lies and manipulations in this world and somehow come out unscathed. I don't think that's possible either. Here's my question, though. Will AI be the one verifying that we are humans? Now, already I have questions about that are a little bit like time travel paradoxes and causality loops. Are you a human? Yes. Well, the AI says you are, therefore you are. You can't make this stuff up, right? But having read an extensive interview with Mr. Blania of WorldCoin, here are a few of his thoughts. Number one, everyone in the world should have universal access to the internet. We've established that. Secondly, it will be as critical to life as having water. Not sure about that, Alex. It will be how everyone generates a living. And finally, everyone will receive digital currency in the form of a universal basic income. You know, digital equality to ensure a more just economic system is what they're saying. And this is how they want to do it. And they're throwing hundreds of millions of dollars at it. Now, these WorldCoin orbs, you may have heard of these weird silver orbs. They were in the news a few months ago. There are pictures of them online. But here's the AI-generated definition of the WorldCoin orb. The WorldCoin orb is a device that scans a person's iris to verify their identity and assign them a World ID. The World ID is a digital passport that allows people to prove their humanity online. It is designed to be secure and private and distinguish humans from AI. This is from their own website. The orb's first task is to determine if you are a living person that is not attempting to defraud the verification. It does so with a variety of camera sensors and machine learning models that analyze facial and iris features. Once the determination is made, the orb takes a set of pictures of the person's irises and uses several machine learning models and other computer vision techniques to create an iris code, which is a numerical representation of the most important features of an iris pattern. All these operations happen in real time on the orb. No images ever leave the device unless you choose to help us enhance the system by opting into data custody, whatever that means. This iris code is then signed with the orb's unique private key, I'm thinking blockchain here, and submitted for comparison against all other iris codes to verify uniqueness. It's important to note that WorldCoin does not use your iris to identify who you are, but only to verify that you are unique and you do not already exist. Wow. According to Time magazine from a year ago, over the past few months, shiny metallic orbs have materialized in cities around the world, from New York to Berlin to Tokyo. Its creators hail the orbs as revolutionary devices, ushering in a new era of global humanity and financial stability. Its detractors slam them as invasive, dystopian, and exploitative. Time goes on to say WorldCoin officially launched in July of 2023, with the project embarking on a multi-city sign-up tour. Altman posted a video of long lines outside orb centers and said that the project was scanning in a new user every 8 seconds. They claim more than 2 million people have registered for World IDs. Some people have signed up out of curiosity or they love the technology, but many more, it seems, signed up for a simpler reason: money. In order to galvanize interest in the project, WorldCoin has created its own crypto called WLD and has offered 25 units, which is about $60, to anyone who scanned their eyes into an orb. That offer does not extend to the U.S., however, due to the country's strict regulatory environment related to crypto products. So we don't know when the orbs will come to the U.S. or if. They say WorldCoin is part marketing ploy, a global financial infrastructure, and, of course, funding for tools for humanity, Mr. Blania's organization. What's the takeaway on all this? An entirely new global economy. This is the main claim by all these entrepreneurs. And universal access to this economy by every human is the goal. And, when you think about, I think about over time how I've looked at these things and how I've parsed them out in my mind and thinking, wow, there are plenty of countries where people are off the grid. There are plenty of countries, and it's a big world out there. People that have not really succumbed to technology at all. So I still see this as taking time, of course. But these guys are forward-looking. They're throwing a lot of money at this stuff. Do people know what they're signing up for? I have no idea. It's just a big, shiny silver orb that they're attracted to. Is it really just a crazy privacy nightmare that even Orwell would have been stunned to see? Maybe. Now comes World Chain to go with the orbs and the coins, the blockchain for humans. More proof of personhood. They are obsessed with this notion. Small and great, rich and poor, free and slave. The Bible doesn't seem to have an issue with who's human and who's not. I don't see that in those verses anywhere. It also says that this ID we receive is the number of a man's name, which I also do not claim to understand at this point. So this has directly tied to the Antichrist. But we're seeing this infrastructure be put in place. So WorldCoin is 1 year old. Let's look at a few stats. Since it began scamming irises, choose your description, they have verified 6.5 million World IDs. Countries with World ID users is 160. They have opened 100,000 accounts in the last week. WorldCoin wallet, the crypto wallet transactions, 138 million. So people are using WorldCoin. Daily crypto transactions in a week is 600,000. Nations with orb verifications, 39. Total orbs manufactured, 3,600. You can go on YouTube and listen to these guys talk about their orb and how it's made and what it does. And you can work as an orb operator. Jobs are available for that. They say a more human internet is the goal. In other words, there will be a part of the internet that's for real people and a part of the internet that's for AI and for bots. But a more human internet, that sounds very oxymoronic to me. The true reality issue with today's internet is the difference between living a genuine life in the world, accountable to our Creator, or having one's face in technology nonstop. We can still choose the real. We can still choose the real world. But the Bible does teach about a technology that is all-consuming, and it's coming. And it is already here. Very, very interesting stuff. We have no orbs in this country, but Leo Hohmann tells us a global digital marking system is coming soon to the U.S. of America, and Biden is working on a draft executive order. He says, I've been reporting on this for 4 years, warning people that it was coming, and prepare for the day when you won't be able to buy or sell unless you submit to a biometric digital ID based on a scan of your eyeballs, your palm, or some other unique feature. Whoever submits to a biometric digital ID is accepting a sinister system designed for one reason and one reason only, to inventory and control every human on the planet through the power of artificial intelligence. Leo says if you submit to a system that bars people who reject the digitization of their identities from entering certain public places and bars them from purchasing essential items, including food and fuel, and bars them from having a bank account or working a job, how is that not the beast system resembling that which is described in Revelation 13? Way too many people, including Christians, believe such a thing will never happen in America, at least not in their lifetimes. They suffer from chronic normalcy bias. If such a system were to appear, they will not believe it is what it is because their pastors tell them it can't be that. It can't be the mark of the beast, not here, not now, that's way off in the future, and only after certain other events take place. Now, we also know, and I interrupt Leo here, that it won't be mandatory until midpoint of the tribulation. But if the tribulation were to start very soon here, this year even, that's still 3.5 years in the future. And I'm pretty sure that the globalists would love to have something like that in place right now. Leo says, never mind, the system is already fully functional and being implemented in several dozen countries around the world. America is different, they say. America is exceptional, and our government would never be allowed to force us to get digitally marked, allowing authorities to tag and track us wherever we go, like cattle in a feedlot, awaiting their destination at the slaughterhouse. Well, he says, look at the article posted August 30th by The Defender, which cites a nonprofit news outlet as having obtained a draft executive order that will speed up the implementation of digital IDs in America. This confirms what we've been warning about for several years. Has anyone asked if we the people want it? Of course not. It will be jammed down our throats. It will come with incentives and eventually involve punishments, but it will come. Almost every state already has the infrastructure for this digital ID in place, and more than a few states are already offering these WEF-approved, UN-approved biometric ID systems. The sheeple will line up voluntarily to get theirs. They always do, because it's the next new thing, and Americans love new things, especially technology. But at some point, after all the people have signed away their freedoms by accepting a shiny new digital ID on their phones, the governments and corporations will make these mandatory after all. And like I said, I believe this is after the rapture of the church. And Leo has posted an excerpt from the Defender's bombshell article here. I don't have time to read that. The Defender is an excellent website. You can go and get a lot of the latest information about pandemics and technology and that sort of thing. So we're definitely looking at that. I think that is coming soon. This is not really related, but this has to do with the UK, this headline, and I probably only have time for one more headline. It's called The Iron Grip Tightens. Starmer, this is Keir Starmer, the new head of the UK, and he's far left. Starmer's UK slides towards authoritarianism, removes painting of Thatcher. Under the fresh leadership of Keir Starmer, the UK is experiencing a jarring shift towards restrictive policies that have begun to echo shades of a darker, more authoritarian regime. This emerging narrative from Downing Street signals a departure from British traditions of liberty. Since assuming office, Starmer has initiated a series of actions that starkly contrast with the country's foundational values. One of the most symbolic and controversial moves was the removal of Margaret Thatcher's portrait from 10 Downing Street. This act might seem superficial, but is deeply indicative of the new government's disregard for conservative legacies and British history. It's also reminiscent of Obama's removal of Winston Churchill's bust from the Oval Office as his first act as president, likely not a coincidence. Trump, however, put it back, and Biden removed it again. The Starmer administration has also proposed draconian measures to suppress free speech and tighten control over public discourse. Recent policies include extending bans on smoking outside pubs, a minor yet telling restriction that reflects a broader, more invasive control over personal choices. Perhaps most alarmingly, the introduction of non-hate crime incidents legislation stands out as an Orwellian move. This legislation allows individuals to be criminally recorded and to be given a criminal record for actions that are not illegal, but are perceived by someone else as offensive. This concept challenges the very essence of legal justice and has sparked fears that the UK is veering towards that surveillance state reminiscent of dystopian narratives feared by both Brits and Americans alike. And they're silent on immigration, of course. And we're just being run over by these policies. Despite the overwhelming concern among the populace, his admin's failure to address the crisis at Britain's borders, coupled with the refusal to acknowledge the escalating illegal crossings, paints a picture of a government out of touch with its people, or worse, one that is selectively mute on issues that are existential to the continuation of the British people. So no matter what we're hearing, that we're going to be more free to say what we want, less of the censorship, that is absolutely not going to happen. We're living in very, very unique times, and I hope that it's not too much to follow. Some of you who want to follow technology more than others, some of you like the subject more than others. I totally understand that. But I think it's really, really good to understand what's going on in the world from that perspective. There's also another article that I don't get time for. I wish I did. It's by Jonathan Brentner, who's been a guest on the program. It's called God is Restraining the Wars, the Lawlessness, and the Chaos until one day he doesn't. Very, very excellent article. He says, a few years ago, a pastor used a rubber band as an illustration of the nearness of the rapture. Just as one can only stretch it so far before it snaps, world events could only continue so long before the chaos of the tribulation period erupts across the earth. And I think we are seeing that. I think we're seeing the Holy Spirit restrain things. As far as evil goes, the Middle East goes, so many things are connected. They're lining up. They're all part of the same thing. But we definitely want to be watching and waiting for the Lord and looking for his hand in all these things, and how gracious and merciful he is for those who don't know him yet. What if he had come a few years ago? Would you have gone home? So, God is gracious, compassionate, slow to anger, and rich in love. That's it for today's Stand Up for the Truth. On tomorrow again is the replay of Jan Markell, her weekend of Understanding the Times. So no podcast tomorrow, but listen in for Jan's presentation. Thursday, Claude Stauffer, we're going to talk about eternity. It's called The Best Is Yet to Come. Friday, the Prophecy Conference at Calvary Chapel, and we have Chris Quintana, Kyle Peart, and Flynn Hughesby here in the studio, roundtable discussion. That just sounds like a lot of fun to me. So thanks for being with me, and we'll see you live again on Thursday.